This is a conversation between myself and the very talented musician, producer, artist, Devi McCallion. While the internet music model may be the status quo today, Devi's place is well earned with almost 20 years of releasing projects under her net label, blacksquares. While she may have found recent popularity with projects like Girls' Rituals, Mom, and Black Dresses, she pioneered the landscape of independent online artistry long before popular culture shifted to value it. Our conversation focuses on the unique experience she gained as an online artist throughout the dramatic changes to the internet over the past 20 years. She shares insights into online commercialization and socialization, and one can gather a sense of what the future of this virtual landscape might hold. It was a pleasure speaking with Devi, and I hope to have many other people like her on the show moving forward. Without further ado, this is Devi McCallion. Okay, so thank you for being here today. Do you want to start off by maybe providing a little bit of your history and your journey since you got into the artist space?
Thank you for having me, Fisher. I'm Devi McCallion. I guess I have been a musician for some 20 odd years. Been running like a net label, so I've been self-publishing my own music the whole time, and never seeking out representation outside of that. Through the internet, been kind of like early into trying to do that like exclusively through the internet mostly. Not as interested in playing live shows and stuff like that until fairly recently due to health stuff. So I was just focused on like self-recording and self-publishing. And yeah, anyone has yet to stop me from doing it.
Awesome. So when did you release your first album then?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you qualify that. Probably the first formal one that other people heard in any capacity was, I guess, 2006. At the time I was in grade 9 or 10 in high school, and I made a 30-track album that was called 1998. My band was called Babies. Yeah, and yeah, before that, like I even as far back as like being like 12 or 13, I was making albums, but like I don't think anyone heard it except for me. I was putting it on the internet too and stuff, but that was when I think that was the first more serious one.
So you've been really releasing music online for almost, well, over 20 years now, but
Yeah.
to as far as what you would consider a serious capacity, about 20 years now.
Yes.
So you say that you released your first like kind of playing around album much before that, especially at a young age, 12 or 13. What got you into the space, especially where this was what I think is pretty unheard of for most people around that time frame? What got you into the space to do that?
Well, I was really interested in the internet, but I did not have it at home at that time. I would go to the library and use the internet, and I was really excited about the idea of it. And like other people, like that was the time of like LimeWire and Napster existed. Like other people had a computer at their home that they could put LimeWire or Napster or whatever and be downloading music. And I really wanted to download music or like listen to music on the computer. But since that wasn't an option, I was like looking all over the internet for where you could get music to download. And there's a website called mp3.com. There's another one called SoundClick. And so these websites were kind of like comparable to SoundCloud nowadays, where it's like amateur musicians like making their own stuff, uploading it that you could freely download. So it wasn't like a kind of a legal thing. It was more like people who owned the copyright to their own stuff would put online. And so I saw all these people that were like really weird, strange people, kind of like outside of the type of person. You know, if you're in a successful band already, probably you weren't thinking about SoundClick or mp3.com. You were probably just like getting your hustle out there in the real world, where it was kind of like people that were too specialized to like really bring a particularly large audience. And so I saw these people doing their own really unique thing on websites like that, and that's really what inspired me to to I wanted to join in that. I saw other people on there that I thought were really cool, and I was like, I want to do this too. And so like I like with there was like a guest book, there was like guest books on people's pages and stuff, and be like a kid be like, oh, like what software do you use to do this? And like people be like, oh, Fruity Loops, you can use the free demo. And like, yeah, so people explained how to do it to me, and I hopped in.
So even at that time, there was kind of a running community of specialized niche music.
Yeah.
So has your interest mainly been to use the internet to release specialized or niche, or not applying to a wide commercial audience?
Yeah. There was a book I read. It was like a early internet theory book when I was in my early teens. It was called like The Long Tail or something. And it was kind of about you know, like TV or something. It's made to appeal to the largest amount of people at the same time in the most general sort of way, the lowest common denominator. But the idea was that on the internet, this is like early 2000s. I feel like the shape of this has sort of changed, but it was like the more specialized you are, kind of was the theory of this book, is almost the better, because it's like people can, no matter what thing you're into, like no matter how specialized it is, someone's going to type it into Google or whatever, and that the people who are into the exact same thing as you are going to find you and like connect with your thing like a lot stronger than someone with a more general taste. Or like it would be harder to compete with a pop musician when they have so much more resources, but if you're making something that's so specifically dialed into this same wavelength, uh, that it's be more easy to connect with people. And I feel like the internet now is more going in the shape of television, where like stuff is more like trying to appeal to that lowest common denominator more with like the way For You pages work or the algorithm. It's more in a passive, like in the early 2000s, you go on the internet and you knew what you were looking for. You treated it more like a library. Like you were like, I'm looking up this specific thing. Whereas nowadays you kind of turn on your phone and you're like, what's on?
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So, what do you think caused that sort of shift? Is it algorithms, or is it the main social interchange transitioning from TV to mobile computing?
Yeah, I think definitely like a For You page is definitely more like how to turn on the TV, or like going to the main page of YouTube. Now it kind of shows everybody regardless. Like there's probably like 12 different like YouTube front pages, and you just get like this one that it thinks you want. Whereas like in early YouTube, you would open up YouTube and it would show you videos that no one had seen yet, like that had 25 views. Whereas now it's trying to like accumulate power on these specific approved channels. Whereas in the past it was, yeah, you knew what you're looking at and the search engine would find it, or you would just see like entirely random things. Also, just that more people are using it. Like everyone has a cell phone now, so it's less you know, in the early 2000s, a very like extremely nerdy person that would be on the internet, whereas now everyone's on the internet. And I think like TikTok being more video based, like I really, really liked the reading only internet. I'm not as much a fan of listening to stuff, but more people are engaged with video content, I guess, in a casual way.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, it's a lot easier to uptake video content than reading.
Mm.
Do you think that that shift has benefited your music in a way, or having been around for so long after the transition has benefited your music, or hurt it, or neither?
I've been on the advantageous side of being selected by the algorithm seemingly arbitrarily for success. Like with a former band that I had, Black Dresses, it seems to be without rhyme or reason that just like there's a song I have with 40 million plays or whatever, and I can't see the reason why it's this song and not other songs, other than like it just ended up in the random number generated and then like it kind of rolled downhill. And because once a piece of media you put on the internet, how the internet works now, once it has like the critical mass, once there's enough people on it, then it's going to just keep like katamariing into like a bigger ball. But I think that in general, it's to the extreme detriment of independent artists, how the internet works now, because it's just going to show something that's because like if you're signed to a label, the label can incentivize websites to have you show up, like you pay to come up and stuff like that. Whereas, yeah, if you're just putting up stuff, then you got tough competition.
So the sort of corporatization of it all is allowed for basically the same form of promotion as before, but now it's online.
Yeah, when I was starting out doing this, like I've been trying to make money off the internet before, yeah, before it was a commercial marketplace. Like it was more like a library. Now it's like a mall.
That's wise. That's really good.
Yeah, it's the internet is not a community. It is a place to do business.
The the commercialization, as technology advances more and more, the potential for it to be commercialized and increases. At that point in time, when you first got started, through to, I guess you cite your releases with Black Dresses is becoming a little bit more commercially popular. Yeah.
Mm.
Every point between when you got started to that point, were you ever thinking that your music would be popular one day, or were you making it yourself or for yourself? Or one of my questions is, are recordings how we interface with the future? So were you ever at any point trying to make music that would be relevant in the future?
Huh. No, I'm always I think I'm very just in the moment with it. Like I'm kind of trying to communicate with myself in the present or something. Yeah, I wasn't really particularly with the aim of becoming popular. Yeah, until 2017, I'd work on an album for months or whatever, and that 40 people would hear it max. And so I was never discouraged by not making money or not being uh, popular. To, I guess another factor for me personally is, yeah, coming up in a time and place as a trans woman, and I guess like that's a marginalized community, that I was not really given a lot of opportunities to participate with the formalized economy, the formal economy. Um, And so it was not really a particularly effective way to make money, but it was also sort of my only option. So I was trying to find a way to make it work.
That's smart. So the internet enabled you as belonging to a marginalized community.
Mm.
In your pathway, because of the internet, you were able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, that seemed like what I had to do. Yeah.
That's unfortunate, but it seems that it worked out. I would say. Do
Yeah.
you, conversely to uh, my prior question, would you say that your music from the past has aged well and is popular now, or more popular now than it has been due to cultural changes?
Yeah. So I kind of happened by chance into an extremely effective uh, business strategy in the way that monetizing music on the internet currently works, which is that the way I was producing music was I would try and spend as little time on it as I could while making it the thing I wanted, and I would have very low to no overhead costs. So I, over all of the years that I've been doing it, had this huge archive of music that, because it's all on Spotify now, there's like 400 songs that I've made that are all generating what they call passive income, I think. Uh, so and this is kind of like people trying to break the game now will be like, I uploaded 10,000 songs to Spotify, and even if people only like accidentally click on a song called I Poop My Pants, like that it's going to give them a certain amount of money. uh yeah. So in the past, I was kind of doing this very insane thing of making 30 albums that no one listened to, but now that I'm somewhat more recognizable to people, it's making me a decent income. Oh, and about how recordings are ways we communicate to the future through time. And maybe this answer is a little too woo woo, but I guess you could also look at it um, the opposite way and say that culture is communicating with itself through time, through the vector of humans. You could consider culture to be the living entity that like slews off dead cells, generates new cells, and that humans are the thing that rebuilds those cells or casts off those cells through consensus.
And that's moving forward through time, right?
Yeah, that's through time. That humans will live and die on a geological scale. Culture is a living thing.
Right. So you were were more of a cultural outlier in the past. Do you think that no offense, but
Uh-huh.
as far as making internet music,
Mm.
uh, would you say that the culture has sort of shifted to where now you're more centralized?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty funny. Maybe not necessarily for the better. Yeah, I think I was kind of um yeah, I definitely felt more, or even just as much as where people would think I'm a weirdo because what I believed or how I thought about things in the past, and now everyone's as crazy as me, and I know how that feels. It's very uncomfortable, so that is unfortunate for them. Yeah, or like the fact that I guess I was an influencer before there was such a thing as an influencer, and now that's what children in grade school want to grow up to be. And I would think it's not particularly good for your brain or your personal development to do that.
To be an influencer or to want to be an influencer?
To be an influencer.
My university just opened up an influencer degree,
Hmm.
a degree in influencing.
I mean, it makes sense. You can make more money as an influencer than as a middle school teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say you need a strong psychic immune system, because to be a successful influencer, you have to be performing to a large group of people's needs all at the same time. And that can make you into a very strange and unhappy person.
That's very true. It's sort of monetizing parasocial living, really.
Yeah, when you monetize the core aspects of your life, it can it can be a little painful or Cronenberg-esque.
Nice. Has that sort of yeah, that impulse to become an influencer affected you, and have you had to draw any boundaries? Would you say that? I guess you would say that you are an influencer.
Yeah, not a particularly popular one by the scale at which, a real influencer would count their statistics. Like, I'm sure I go to a party and there's random civilians with more Instagram followers than me. I'm still under 15K. I'm kind of just like, yeah, but yeah, technically people are on that parasocial level of watching what I'm doing. Um, in the past, like I think I kind of hit the next. I in When I discovered Tumblr in the early 2010s, I got very serious about this project of pretty much just blogging every single thought that I had onto that website, and really not holding anything back, to the point where I almost trained myself to not have thoughts unless I was typing them into the computer. Uh, yeah, so I was experimenting with this idea of just absolutely no privacy, and also that I would go to my way to just, I was like, oh, well, I don't have enough fans to make this a job. I'm going to recruit fans. I'm going to go find people that seem like they would be into my thing, and I'll talk to them. And also, I'll let them kind of cross my boundaries. All this stuff is very much not a good idea in terms of safety. But yeah, that around the time black dresses got popular, and it went from this small little thing to a lot more people, that I was really unprepared for that shift, and it got scary and dangerous pretty fast, or like to another level. And it was also just like not good for my mental health. And also you can't make everyone happy all the time. Like, I think to be an influencer, you maybe have to be like a certain level of, yeah, to just for the sake of your self-preservation, you probably have to be somewhat deceptive. And I was coming at it from a really sincere angle, and that, it felt really personal if someone didn't like me or had a very specific parasocial gripe or whatever. Also, that people would be like, if a person has 100,000 posts on the internet, it's easy to dig through it and find something to make a problem about. Uh, it's fair enough, but yeah, it was just kind of a lot past a certain point. I had to retool my operation.
So, how has your approach shifted since you found those issues?
Well, in at that time that I was going for this maximum exposure approach, kind of treating myself like a guinea pig. Like, I wonder what will break first, my cell phone or my soul. And uh, that, I was trying to establish an audience, and now I'm at that point where I have enough of an audience to sustain me, and I don't have to overexpose myself in that way. Yeah, that I generally don't post almost anything that involves words, or at least anything personal. On my Instagram, I kind of just, I don't even really post that many pictures of myself anymore. I'm just posting like random pictures that I think is cool.
I was actually going to ask about that, but before I do, because I find that really, really interesting and almost like old school.
Yeah,
But if you hadn't became popular at that time, do you think that you would still be going for this maximum sincerity approach, or you would have worn yourself out?
it's a lot more sustainable when no one cares. It's a lot more sustainable when no one cares. Um, yeah, I think I would probably continue in the same way.
Uh, do you think that approach led to your exposure, or was it just RNG?
There's I think the RNG was a large part of it, and also the fact that it's like with music to be selected by the RNG, um it's like each song you put on streaming is almost feels like getting a scratch off lottery ticket, where each one is its own individual chance to be chosen by the RNG, sort of regardless of the quality. And so I had bought a lot of scratch off tickets in this system. I think the other aspects, uh, I mean, I think the sincerity connected me with other artists that have have a similar level of sincerity and dedication, and that put me in a position to keep doing uh, keep doing important work. But also, there was like a particularly exploitative nature of that Black Dresses album that got popular. I think, um, yeah, that I just happened to make something that was just so intensely miserable that it was attention grabbing.
So there was sort of a bifurcated nature of it, where
Yeah.
on one hand you had the maximum amount of chances, or you were maximizing your chances. Then on the other
Mm.
one, you happened to hit a note that resonated with people as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you do that intentionally, or was it just happen? Did it just happen to resonate with people?
It just happened. I kind of didn't. I uh because my music was really unpopular, I didn't have a very good sense of, yeah, that my mentality with making stuff is that I try to make it resonate with myself, because that's the only thing that I can guess is I can only feel my own resonation. I can't feel other people's. So if I was trying to play to other people's tastes, I would be guessing, whereas if I'm playing to my own taste, then I'm knowing. Uh yeah, so but yeah, I was kind of yeah, it was designed for not a lot of people to hear because it's so raw and so personal. And when a lot of people heard it, I was very scared.
I can understand that. Feels like you're exposing yourself.
Yeah, there was like a lot of really personal stuff on there, and that when the audience was the size it was, I was like, oh, I would not have said that if I knew tens of thousands of people were listening, or at least not in that way.
That makes sense. I'm sure that your musical, the way you approach music now that you know that considerably more people are going to listen to it, has that changed how you approach your subject matter?
Yeah, it's honestly been a struggle to continue making music after that whole experience. For like I kind of went through stages with it where it blew up. It was so popular. I got more money than I ever seen before, and I kind of cynically for a period engaged with that. I was like, okay, if this is what people want, they want to hear someone having a really bad time. Like I can do that. I'm having a bad time. Let me set this up for you. And then after that, uh, after being like, okay, if this is how I'm gonna get money, I'm gonna get money like that. It it just, the audience kept growing, and I it eventually made it really hard for me to make music at all, because I just felt like like I was for a while playing to the audience, and then felt like the audience was kind of vampirizing off of my emotions, and it was really hard to make music at all. And like it's yeah, but it really became a struggle to write any type of music, and I became extremely guarded about it. But I think I'm back in a place that I can be genuine without also self way, like whatever the word is when you light yourself on fire, self-immolating.
Gotcha. So it doesn't necessarily have so much of a personal toxic hold on you now.
Yeah, at least like I think that, yeah, that I can still speak to what's true to me and important to me without at least sticking my finger in my own fresh wound.
That's good. I'm sure that it's important to set up those sorts of boundaries in order to still have genuine music, you know. And
Yeah, it's been a learning experience, and I'm grateful to have it.
I want to elaborate on that, but before that, your response reminded me of a John Malkovich quote I heard the other day. He said, "We explore other people with parts of ourselves." Do you think that your initial album that you say got popular, do you think it just happened to be a part of you that as you put it out of your head and into the world, do you think sort of latched on to other people? Would that be appropriate?
Maybe the opposite, like that. At the time, I had this very cynical feeling, like, oh, just people are there for the spectacle of someone in a precarious situation having a really bad time. Uh, but more, I've come to be less emotionally raw with it and try to be empathetic. And I think that it probably also became popular because those experiences are unfortunately not very uncommon, and lots of people are subject to difficult situations like that. So I think it had a utility, not just as spectacle, but as a tool for other people to maybe explore experiences that they had, or maybe didn't even realize that were like that.
I would certainly agree with that. Um, so going back a little bit, as far as having a sort of backlog of music at the time, where while you were making it at the time was pretty niche and unpopular, and now into the future, people look back on it, and a lot of it, especially at the time, might resonate with them. You know, when they either weren't exposed to it or weren't going through the same experience for it to resonate with them uh, at the time of its conception. That reminds me of. Do you know the artist Gary Wilson?
Uh, no, I'm actually not familiar. I was gonna, yeah, I'm curious to know.
Really? Wow. You actually will probably be into Gary Wilson's music. He was like one of the original indie artists, like 1980s kind of new wave era, self-recorded a album called "You Think You Really Know Me." I'm a big fan of his music and yours. And there's a lot of similarities where at that time he recorded just like a pretty cool kind of jazz sort of fusion album, but then it basically disappeared. He self-published it, which you think was crazy in 2006 was even crazier in 1980 as like an 18-year-old.
Yeah, you'd have to like have the vinyls in your trunk and drive around from store to store. And
Right, exactly. So he was one of the earlier adopters of this, and basically it disappeared until, I don't know, around 2000 or so, when someone discovered one of his records in a store, and he's been making music and releasing it under Cleopatra Records ever since. So pretty cool story in his way as well. He was making music pretty much just for himself, and it just happened to resonate with the future, and he sort of I guess similar to your experience, whereas he might have been a cultural outlier in making this sort of. It would make more sense if you'd heard his music. You really should check it out.
yeah.
But sort of very similar, emotionally intimate music,
Mm.
and became more popular in the future as the culture kind of shifted to his direction. And now I would say it's shifting even more in that direction. There's a lot of studies that show that Generation Z, more than prior generations, is values emotional intelligence and mental health more than their prior generations by staggering amounts.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna this is like I had two different bullet points here. Yeah, with my mentality with I guess recordings communicating through time is, yeah, that I would really try to make the thing what it feels like to me it wants to be. Like, yeah, that I have the mindset, like, even if no one hears it now, if the work is solid, that it will always be there, hopefully for someone to find in the future. And yeah, as much as it's obviously you need money to live in society, and so not getting money is very difficult. That it felt like something was kind of taken away from me when my music got popular, because I was mostly using music as this way to intimately communicate with myself, and that becomes a lot harder to do when there's this big audience. Even if you're not playing to them, just when you're writing, it's hard not to like remember that there's going to be all these people looking at it, and it is harder because, yeah, to find that intimacy.
Is it hard to not write a line and go, "Oh, they're gonna love this one"?
I mean, yeah, you can sometimes psych yourself up with that, or you're like, oh, I should change this because it's a little bit too true, or like someone's going to hear this and know what I'm talking about, and I don't exactly want people to know this much about my personal life anymore.
That's a really good insight. Going back on your initial introduction to music, you released your music on not Napster, a piracy system, but which is kind of interesting. I heard the other day that uh, Shaggy's wasn't me. I didn't know this. Is like a history lesson for me in internet. Got popular after it was leaked on Napster.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's like a Vice making of documentary or something. Those are really good. It's like, or I don't know if it's Vice. I can't remember what was the news source exactly, but there's a little documentary about it that's very interesting. It's yeah, it's a good episode. Yeah, I think that, yeah, that some radio DJ found it on Napster and played it, and then everyone was looking for it, but it wasn't out yet, or something like that, so that it became really popular on Napster or something.
Right. So my connection there is I wanted to speak to you about intellectual property, data ownership. You're someone that makes their
Hmm.
living, makes their bread and butter off of your right to profit off of your music. Um, so
Hmm.
this is a very, very difficult question for not only you, but pretty much every human. Uh, what's a permissible amount of control that you possess over the communication of the data that you create?
Um, I'm not going to give a decisive answer, but I can give a detailed answer. Yeah, where I'm coming from with stuff personally is that I was early on interested in the Creative Commons. It's like non-attribution, non-derivative 3.0 license. So from early on I was involved with there's like a Game Boy 8-bit music scene called the demo scene and other early internet projects where amateur musicians would get together and make a bunch of music and have it under this license where people can use it for free or share it or reproduce it as long as they don't sell and they don't change it. So I was interested in the idea of that, and I'm not defensive over the piracy of my music or whatever. Even though I have a net label and an online store, people can pay $0 and just get it. It's actually been very much to my advantage to have this pay what you can system, where maybe some people will download it for free, but also people will come and really connect with it and overpay for it. So it kind of it works well for me in a way that people are also able to access it, and also feel like they're not being pushed away for lack of funds. I also run shows like this with a kind of punk ethos where no one's turned away for lack of funds. But I do, in terms of my commercial rights, intend to keep just owning my entire catalog. There's lots of businesses now that will see your data on Spotify and see you have a song with a big number. And like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, a company was offering me $15,000 for a single song, and I just said, no, I want to keep it. It sounds like too much work. Yeah, and also, like, since my music has become more popular, I've gotten offers from record labels, and it just seems like that I can, like, a record label system is to fund 10 albums with the hope that one of them will be a critical success and pay for the other ones. Whereas I've basically proven my concept is feasible at this point, and I don't need a record label.
The fact that they're offering you deals is indicative of your success.
Yeah, that is already basically worth that money.
Mm.
I could just sit on it and keep getting it over time and more. Whereas I think they're looking for people who would need that 15K right now and are willing to sacrifice their future income.
So you were a sort of, well, especially for today when this is the status quo, but you were an early adopter of this commercial sort of indie monetization and ownership of your own music and your own data.
Yeah, nowadays, I think particularly in the rap music scene, because rap and hip hop artists and probably racialized artists in general have historically very much taken advantage of by the recording industry, where even if they make a lot of money, the label will cut them a really bad deal and basically keep all of it. So people, like a lot of before other genres, rappers were very much like, don't sign unless you're really sure like it is worth a lot to own the rights to your own music. Yeah, and also just when you sign to a record label, it's like you're kind of signing with a record label specifically is kind of like taking out a loan. Like the record label gives you $40,000, but you're also expected to pay back any money they spend on the expensive recording studio, on the expensive video, on the tour promotion, all this other stuff. That's kind of also like, it's like, wow, my face is really big on that billboard, but it's like you paying for that. And if I wanted to put my face on a billboard, I could do it out of my own pocket and continue to work on my own schedule. I'm in it for the long haul. I just don't want to get worked into the ground. I'm gonna pace myself. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
That mindset has certainly been, contributed to the 20 years of backlog that you've been speaking about. That's great.
Yeah. I think I would have got burned out a lot sooner.
That makes sense. Moving on, this is kind of tied back to if you might have been a cultural outlier for your usage of the internet before and in what you were doing, and now you seem to be a little bit more central to what everybody is sort of going through. Do you Why do you think that is? Is everybody more online now? And why is that? Does it relate to the COVID epidemic, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it's that everyone generally needs a phone in order to function in society, like to apply for jobs or to pay your bills or whatever. You kind of just generally need to have a phone. And then the the social media and the apps on the phone are designed to be particularly addictive. Um, and also, the phone screen is extremely big and colorful. Most people's lives are not that colorful, and so it's the brain just likes color, and so yeah, that also makes it more addictive. That yeah, I think people are kind of just like uh, in a dangerous position of having their phone in their pocket, and if their mind wanders, instead of letting their mind wander, they'll take out their phone and they'll start scrolling, and they'll be served content. They're not going on their phone to look something up. They're just getting whatever random thing is incentivized to be there.
How do you think that's affected people?
Um, I think people are suffering greatly for it, but it seems like they're not stopping.
In what ways are they suffering? This is something that I think you might be sensitive to.
I think that it's really playing on people's sense of alienation that it seems like a lot of cultures, maybe America in particular, is going through this period where no matter who someone is, they feel alienated and done wrong by society. And in part, that comes from the fact that the way social media works is it's engagement driven. And because it's engagement driven, the most engagement is going to be conflict. And the conflict that you're most likely to look at is the conflict that's something that's personal to you or related to your own demographic. So you open your phone and you see someone saying something absolutely hideous about you or someone you care about, and it over time, even if you distance yourself from it and you're like, that's them, that's not me, like I'm having a good day, I'm happily married, like whatever, it kind of builds up in the psychic miasma, and people are a bit paranoid and scared and freaked out and angry at each other. Like they open their phone and they see another demographic rejecting them, then they feel like they have to go and reject that group. So they feel like they have control over that exchange. Um, at least that's how I think that sometimes it works. Um, yeah, that would be a big part of it, or that people are looking at their phone and seeing someone, with a lot of money, because that is very pretty, because that's what TikTok will show you, is a beautiful person with a lot of money, and they think, oh, my life is so hard and so fucked up. I've been so done wrong by society. Everyone's getting the thing that I'm not getting. There's just all this. People have a complex about seeing everyone else in the world. Yeah, it would make you crazy.
Alienation, disgruntlement.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's also contributed to boredom at all?
Yeah, I think the way the internet works, that it moves so fast, and that if yeah, it seems to have shortened people's attention span, and unfortunately, kind of like what you put in life, you get back out. You have to like kind of. I think you should probably like yeah, that if you don't have an attention span to engage with something that's rewarding, like the equivalent of that is like a nutritious meal that you can then metabolize and turn into cells that are going to make your healthy body. But if you only have a short attention span, it's like only eating fast food. You're going to be kind of like, yeah, you're going to be bored with these 15-second videos, even if they're the most bright and colorful and exciting 15-second videos ever. There's kind of like a limited amount you can get out of it. So you're just stuck in that, just watching new content. You're not like, oh, that was really interesting. Let me like think about that and think about what my feelings on it are or something.
It's certainly not satiating. Um, so with that in mind, there's kind of two conflicting operations of the internet. There's one with mobile computing, where everybody can have quick form entertainment all the time thanks to the internet, thanks to mobile computing. But also, on that same hand, more than ever before, the internet enables long form content, which is just as economic to be delivered as short form content, especially with the rise of like podcasts and other long form things.
Or like a 10-hour stream, or like a 2-hour YouTube video or whatever.
Right, exactly. I don't know how people watch like 10-hour streams. No one's entertaining for 10 hours on it. It can't be possible.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't think the point of those streams is to be entertaining. It's like how, you go to your grandma's house and she's just got the talk radio on in the kitchen all the time. Like, it's just so the house feels less empty, or maybe you feel it's like simulating the feeling of having company.
So now it's more the cultural interchange is all online. When I had roommates, we'd have two people in their bedrooms, and they would talk every day, but maybe they only saw each other in person for 5 minutes. Instead, they'd be on Discord, and their words would, instead of just echoing through the rooms, would go out to a Discord server and then be routed back into the house in a different room. So our cultural and social interchange is now fully online. Or I would say maybe 80% online for younger generations. So do you think because of that, having the sort of stream on all the time has been like a sort of mind filler?
Yeah, it's the way that it's a mind filler is somewhat concerning, because I'm someone that really likes to like sit with a thought and spend time with it. And this is kind of just my approach to writing music, or a lot of things, is like, even if it's not a perfect thought, even if it's kind of just like a random thing, I want to spend some time and see where it's going and see what like accumulates around it. Whereas with it's like I think, yeah, the people's short attention span, they're like, oh, I'm bored. You're kind of not engaging even with yourself deeply, and like that's I think people do need to unwind and have time that they're not spending like ruminating or thinking deeply. But also, if you're never doing that, you're kind of like deading your inner world.
That's very true. There seems to be a diminishing return at some point, where I would say more inward thoughts than then shallow thoughts would be helpful. But like you say, at a certain point,
Mm-hmm.
It can be exhausting to also be in tune like that
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Like just balance. Just balance would be good. I'm not saying I love the internet, and honestly, in a lot of ways, the internet is better than it's ever been. But you just have to know what you're looking for. Like I try to not engage with For You pages or YouTube homepage. I try to think about like, okay, what am I going on the internet to look for? Because the internet's very fast, and I'll probably find it. Unlike the old days where, maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Like there's all this stuff that's so easily accessible, but you just need to not be doing like the looking in the fridge, oh, what's in here type thing with it.
Right, right. It's about intention. Do you, what do you think of the best example I can give of this would be Reddit. Their content isn't necessarily sorted based off of engagement. They do have an algorithm, but you can basically disable it. Instead, and it's not sorted by singular content creators, it's sorted by topics and communities in to a point where you can have a community for I don't know, a specific model of truck,
Totally.
or anything
Yeah.
like that.
I love some really specific Reddits are like the what is it like it's like the 6'7" Reddit where it's like the limit of like how tall a truck can be before it hits the top of the bridge. It's just all pictures of trucks just like getting the top cleaved off like a can opener, for example. But yeah, really specific. Yeah, I also because I was using the internet just all the time, like really clocking 12 hours a day or more for 10 years.
Would you say that you were chronically online?
Probably like now people are on their phone like all the time. But yeah, before that I would just I would pretty much only lived online and only communicated with people online and stuff.
At what point did that begin?
Like 2007, 2008. Pretty much as soon as it was an option to communicate with people online, I was really looking to do that. I was really interested to do that. I also had like I was like a really shy kid, and I just found it a lot easier to type to someone than to talk to them in real time, where I could like really think about what I was gonna say and make it sound how I want it to sound and stuff like that. Yeah, and also that you could find people that shared your extremely specific interests or communities that you were curious about or whatever.
For those types of people, it feels like it's, including myself, I could say, it feels easier to communicate with a computer than it does with a person at some points.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's more the norm now. That people, if you call them on the phone, they're scared, but if you text them, we're all good. And yeah, it's kind of scary. Also, the fact that that it's more easy to talk to a computer than a person, and also forgive me if this isn't appropriate for your show, I guess, but just the fact that people typically access pornography on the computer, they're like sexually imprinted to their computer. Their computer is their main sex partner. It kind of makes sense that a lot of people are struggling to engage with one-to-one human relationships. It's hard to compete with the computer.
Right. Even now, we aren't truly speaking to each other. We're interfacing with bits on a screen.
We're in a synchronized state of talking to our furniture.
That's really succinct. That's really true. The way that we interface with culture, there's an excellent essay written by Bruce Schneier. He's a cybersecurity journalist, but he speaks about the cultural interchange or social interchange and sort of social infrastructure before might have been in a, like pre-internet, may have been in a marketplace or like more recently a mall or some sort of social forum where the government was responsible for managing the infrastructure to support that interchange. And now all of our social interaction is shifted to online forums, in online online marketplaces, really. And instead of the government being responsible for managing that infrastructure, it's technocracy.
Yeah, I mean,
So, do you have any thoughts about that?
it's I guess this week that Google kind of like removed some of its non-discrimination clauses and also retracted its statement that it wouldn't use its technology for military weapons technology, um, which as far as I know, no one asked them to do. So I guess we'll see how long it takes for these tech companies to become the state, because, or at least intertwined with identical interests.
Right, right. Additionally, just to add a sort of closing note to one of the points of that essay was whereas before the government was incentivized to provide this infrastructure based off of like taxation, so the how healthy their culture was and how healthy their marketplace was directly proportional to their income and profitability. Now, instead of that sort of in real life interaction, data is the new profit driver for all of these companies, where they can now monetize every action. You know, if you on YouTube, if you mouse over a certain video for slightly longer than you mouse over other videos, it'll be recommended to you ad nauseum because you moused over it for 1.5 seconds longer than the other ones. So that's allowed for more pervasive monetization, with the main point of data is the new profit driver.
Yeah,
The new oil.
it's obviously I think it's overall pretty scary or pretty dangerous, because then YouTube or Instagram or whatever like knows the thing that scares you, because you probably look at it for a second longer, and then it shows you more of it, and then it shows you more because it shows you. It's obviously obnoxious and scary and horrible, but also it can almost be an interesting tool for self-reflection, because it's like some of the stuff it's showing you, it's like, I hate this, but like now it's time for me to think about like why it's showing me this and what can I learn from that.
Self-awareness is certainly key there.
Yeah,
Children on the internet, especially, where they don't have the self-awareness to reflect on the content that they're engaging with or being fed. There's sort of a content's equally monetized, and it's not filtered based on what's positive or negative. It's filtered based off of engagement. You could call back to ElsaGate there or whatever.
Yeah, I think in the future we'll look at letting children use the internet too much at too young an age, in the same way that we look back at, oh, in the 50s I was 5 years old, so my mom gave me cigarettes to shut me up.
Right, exactly.
Like it probably a similar thing, and like, yeah, children can learn a lot of skills from using an iPad as a baby, but if that time isn't carefully watched, I think it's really dangerous, and it's also very, very addictive. Like I'm as much as I would have liked to use the internet every waking moment as a kid, I'm glad that I had like a specific amount of screen time because it's so addictive. And as a kid, it's like once you build that addiction to looking at the phone, or yeah, looking at the phone for comfort, or to like shut off your thoughts, or because the outside world is unpredictable, but in the phone it's always the same thing. I think it's going to be really hard to unlearn that, or to not to be able to engage with your real life as much as your visual one.
Right. Certainly, my hope is that I won't have to go back and engage with my real life. We're just moving
Yeah,
forward. No, that's not really my hope.
it comes
Sort
and
of
gets
a
you.
yeah, sort of a cynical hope.
As they say, life comes at you fast. Uh,
And faster and faster.
yeah, it does. But I sympathize with the sentiment, even in a joking way.
That's good. I've got a question to ask you, but just reflecting
Yeah.
on some of the things that you've said, um, it certainly seems to be evident that as we move forward, like you say, into the future, we're going to probably view excess screen time as a similar thing to cigarettes for the development of young minds. We're already seeing studies that come out like that with a measurable effect on certain parts of brain development and functions. And in school, it's very similar. Or uh, or like for example, exposure to radioactive materials or hazardous materials,
Mm.
around that same time frame has we now know has a measurable detrimental effect on not only adults but also young people. And studies are already showing that technology, depending on how it's consumed, is having similar effects. Now, you say that you, from a young age, had this excess screen time.
Well, in my household, there was like a strict amount of screen time, but also I'd like wait for everyone to go to sleep and then sneak down to use the family computer that was in the kitchen.
So it didn't necessarily stop you.
Yeah, but it reduced it, kept it from being the only thing. Yeah, one of my big concerns with kids using the internet is because, yeah, like we talked about how like using your phone can shorten your attention span. Like, especially when you're a kid, it's like you want to, like, when you're a kid is when your brain is really flexible. You have time to like learn new skills or new interests that you're going to engage with for the rest of your life and really get a lot of mileage out of. Whereas if your attention span is really flattened, you like pick up a guitar for a few minutes, you're like, it's like, oh, it doesn't sound great. I'm bored. I'm going to pick up my phone. It kind of stops you from planting those seeds that would later become the garden of your life.
Very good. So, how do you think your usage of the internet, seemingly unfettered usage of the internet, affected your development,
Um,
for the better or for the worse?
Nowadays, I think there's ways that my real life was uncomfortable and I didn't want to engage with it, so I'd go to the internet and I'd have my little fantasy life there. As much as that was basically life-saving technology for me, also for a long time I didn't solve problems that were really evident because it was easy to avoid them. And I'm like, oh well, if I had learned to talk to people face to face sooner, I could have maybe been more in the world, developing my social skills, and like the around the type of people you can put your hand on and touch. Um, and Yeah, so there's stuff like that I have a bit of arrested development around. Um, I think I also became pretty savvy around certain things, or learned a lot of skills related to what is now my job. Like I wanted to learn how to record and make my own music. So I'm also a self-taught musician. So yeah, that I picked up all these skills just sort of reading about it on the internet, and or reading about communities, or reading about history and this and that, that are like core parts of myself.
Wow, that's excellent. I was going to add this, but you added it yourself. Certainly, as with all tools or technology, there's capacity for good and for bad. But in certain social aspects of your life, this parallels my own experience. In certain social aspects of your life, you might have not developed the sort of face to face connection, but or the skills related to that due to the internet. However, the internet and computers allowing you to be exposed from a young age to all of these different ideas, to build all of these different skills, has allowed you to grow technically, right?
Yeah.
As well as, once again, calling back to your output. Your brain's output is limited by what you feed into it. Being able to use the internet, not to, like in person, be limited to only what's local to your community or to your library, but what's basically limitless to the cumulative knowledge of humans, fed into your adolescent brain. Certainly, I would say, depending on what information that was, does have a positive effect on you as far as building skills. And in today's world, where our jobs, not just producing music online, but in basically any sort of job that is skilled labor now, is just interfacing with a computer from a young age. Building those skills, I think, also sets you up at an advantage, and set you up at an advantage for today's sort of climate.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the time it felt like, oh, I can't really cut it in the real world, so I'm gonna go to the internet. But now I got the early adopter bonus, I guess.
I agree. Actually, setting up for this interview, I wanted to do something special as far as the production goes, and I'm recording both of our channels separately, and I was thinking this last night, but just to set that up, I had to download like four programs just to do that properly. But
thank you for your hard work.
It's my pleasure. This is a really special opportunity, and I wanted it to work out. So just having the exposure and the experience, and being able to efficiently interface with computers, having done it for all my life, I was able to set that up efficiently in a way where someone who maybe their screen time was limited, or their operations were limited, growing up, might be more technologically illiterate. So certainly there are technical skills to be learned, and young minds can benefit from that sort of exposure to the internet.
Yeah, we should definitely do our best to incentivize those young minds to want that for themselves, if we can find some way to do that.
Right.
Yeah, instead of going for the endless content churn, to like teach them how to do research, or like to know what they're looking for.
Do you think that in this sort of age where everybody's bored or alienated, do you think that places a limit on face-to-face interactions, particularly how much of themselves people feel comfortable exposing in the real world.
Something about how it affects real life socialization that is concerning to me is I feel like with the internet coming more into the mainstream where everyone's on the internet now, in certain ways, because it's always easy to access new people, that maybe we've become a little more disposable to each other. Or I'm not sure if this is a true observation or not, but it feels like people are it's almost like they are less incentivized to, if they have a serious conflict with someone in their life, to actually sit down with that person and talk to them and figure out a way that you can come to an understanding or to continue coexisting. There's a lot more sentiment that, like, this person, I'm going to block them, I'm never going to talk to them again, I'll just find new people to interact with. Or like how that affects people's romantic connections to each other, that I think people maybe are less like, oh, this is the person I know that I'm dating. Like, yeah, it's not perfect, but I'm gonna figure out how to make it work in a situation that would make sense to try and make it work. It's more like on the apps, it's like I could just find someone that looks more attractive to me, and people are always looking for the new thing instead of sitting and trying to problem solve it. They're like, their eyes are like wandering to the next thing.
Certainly. When people are plentiful, they're dispensable, just as any other resource is, or more dispensable, I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
Maybe there's part of that originates organically. I could speak from my own observations. I grew up in a very small town, in going to school with a very small class size, and then I moved to a slightly larger town with a larger class size, and then now to university in a city with ginormous class sizes. Every step up, the more people that are available in your vicinity, the less intimate your connection with each person becomes, and I guess the less unique the opportunity for you to connect with any of these people becomes, because you have going from 60 people to connect with to 250 people to connect with to 2,000 people to connect with, to scaling this up to, as your observations with the internet, all of the people to connect with.
Just anyone, yeah.
Anyone, all the time.
Yeah.
And further, you can be anywhere, any of the time, wherever you want to be. You don't have to engage. Whereas predating mobile technology, you don't have to engage with your immediate surroundings. You can engage with anywhere on the planet, and you aren't limited by the room that you're sitting in.
Yeah. And I guess I'm just of the mindset that typically if you spend more time with something, like building rapport, even if it's someone who's not like immediately like off the rip your soulmate, or the person who has all the exact same interests as you, then you can build that understanding in a way that's can be a lot more structurally sound than someone who's superficially, according to all the tag words or whatever, that they have all the same interests. And another thing that concerns me about this is the way that it can kind of sort people who are demographically identical into groups, or they don't interact with anyone outside of that group. That's really concerning to me. I think it would be a lot better if you had inputs from multiple cultural sources, where you can kind of get like a perspective that comes from multiple like you can get multiple perspectives and build it into a more solid picture of the world. Whereas if everyone has the same interests and is from the same kind of background, you're not seeing your own blind spots or your biases.
Right. That's very true too. That the algorithms, or I think generally humans' preference for, no cognitive dissonance, uh, allows it really expediates the formation of echo chambers,
Yeah.
where you can become disillusioned. But there's actually a really cool, I don't know if you've seen it, but well, really concerning more than cool, model of I forget who made this. I think it was OSINT, but they created a model simulating sort of algorithmic feeding based off of preferences, and sorted by basically colored dots simulating individual people belonging to a different demographic. So you'd have like a blue dot that's like I don't know, a guy of X demographic, and then a purple dot or a red dot of other demographics. And taking a homogeneous group of all of these different colors and allowing for time to pass where that they're fed more and more content based off of their preferences or biases, they sort themselves naturally. So it can be hard to draw a middle ground between. I certainly agree that the maximum amount of different sources of media that you consume are different. I say medium as in like any sort of information that you consume. The maximum amount of sources that you consume, the better for your health and for your brain overall. How do we balance? I don't know if it's even possible given the natural occurrence of this. How do we balance giving people what they want to see versus ensuring that we don't form echo chambers, right?
I mean, yeah, I think the internet is really great for this too. I think yeah, in the past, TV, the way it appeals to a lowest common denominator, kind of like would only really show you like one main demographic of people, or really be interested in the interiority of one demographic. And there wouldn't be these spaces for smaller or marginalized communities to sit together and have conversations about things. And that is a really good thing. But yeah, that doing that only and all the time, I really dislike the outcome of it. Just for anyone. Um, yeah, I think the only way to really do that is for people to have curiosity uh, about people that are different from them, which is something that the computer can't give you. You kind of just have to be curious about the world, or like be like, I wonder what. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. um, are you familiar with the big five personality types?
No, I don't think so.
They're like unimportant and stupid, but one of them is openness. This is kind of I guess a problem with that, or sort of an obstacle, because I agree that if people were more open and more receptive in seeking to understand unique experiences of people that are different from them, or new things, or counter viewpoints, I think it would be better for the world. But I'm afraid that you and me agreeing on that it might just signal that we're high in openness, and that's something that we value. And other people don't see it the same way, and their personalities, I don't want to say incapable, but their personalities are not built to value those things in a way that they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, I guess inside the system, what is the thing that's opposite to openness?
I forgot.
That's fair. That's
Sorry.
fair. Yeah.
Closed-mindedness.
Yeah.
Not wanting to see any. Not being open to new experience or new insight.
Since the internet is mostly usable to either buy things or to research things, if you're not open, maybe be careful how you use it, because either you got to have your own plan or you're going to become part of someone else's plan.
That's very true. The formation of identity around the community that you sort of associate with can be a problem when echo chambers are thrown into the mix, and content filtered based on preference or bias.
Yeah.
Really good thoughts all around. Let's see here. What time is it? Yeah, we can wrap this up pretty soon. Thank you so much for being here and providing all of this excellent answers. Really,
I'm happy to get to talk with you.
Let's see here. What kind of soda do you like? Do you like soda?
Right now I'm on a big sparkling water kick. I like club soda. Sometimes I get a little bit of lime cordial and just put like a tiny little bit for flavor in the club soda. That's what I'm doing right now. Or like, yeah, I like citrus flavored sparkling water. I like ginger beer. I like a really spicy ginger beer.
Just one where you can really feel the ginger in it.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
I want it to burn. That like activates me. Feels good.
Kind of a stupid question.
No, it's fine. Let's get stupid with it.
This is more topical. Unfortunately, it's topical. I wanted to ask you. David Lynch passed away recently, as I'm sure you know. Did you like David Lynch at all? Do you care for his work?
I love David Lynch. I love him, but I didn't get him till fairly recently. Before that, I was not. Obviously, I like the weirdness of his stuff, but I was like hesitant to like if from a very surface level looking at some of his stuff, it's like, oh, it seems like he's kind of picking at some like interest in exploitative topics that maybe don't affect him directly. But I've kind of come around on that, where I see it as coming from a place of real empathy and caring and like an understanding for just how horrible and strange the world can be. The fact that Twin Peaks was like this huge TV show, and at the time he made the answer to this mystery to be on the topic of sexual assault that occurs inside the family, when I think the cultural messaging was very much like stranger danger, that these dangers came from outside of some person there, whereas it can frequently be, I thought like it's very subversive, and I find a lot of his work really emotional. I think Inland Empire has great potential to hit with the young people today that are into like the liminal media or the back rooms. I feel like it really has that kind of energy. Or I was watching the David Lynch masterclass on storytelling, and they played the clip from Wild at Heart where Nicolas Cage is like a biker in the leather jacket, and he's talking to the fairy godmother from Wizard of Oz, and he's like, oh, but I'm a criminal, I'm a bad man, and I didn't have any parental guidance. And the fairy is like, well, if you were truly fucking wild at heart, you would fight for love. And that just like really made me tear up recently. But
That resonates
yeah,
with you.
yeah. And also just like the way that he kind of, the way I feel like he really prioritizes giving you these little chunks that are extremely real to his personal experience, even sometimes at the expense of repeating them in multiple movies or series. I think that like comes back to my approach of like this hyper sincerity, like to try and touch on something really human, even at the expense of it being particularly comprehensible.
Right. You're the same person no matter what project you're working on. So if you're making genuine music, artifacts of your personality and your experience are going to come through,
Yeah,
uh,
totally.
regardless of how much you care for what other people think is one note,
Yeah.
or which I wouldn't describe your art as that, but at all.
Mhm.
But you do it with irregard to what is new to other people, right? What is
Yeah, it's
novel.
uncomfortably intimate. And also, I have a real appreciation for the fact that on all of his projects that he made an effort to have the people involved with him to be getting continuously paid from it. Like that the way his movies and TV shows are built, there's all these actors and musicians and stuff that are going to reappear over and over in every movie. And he built this thing with them, alongside them, in this less hierarchical way, where it's not like David Lynch, the auteur, the boss director. It's like all these people that he would like work together alongside with.
Right. There's a reason why the people he works with keep on coming back to him or worked
Mm.
with. Um, this might be the most important question that I've asked you, but how integral is caring to your operation?
It's very integral. I don't think I'd be doing it if I didn't care. Um, uh,
Kind of a broad question.
I'm just trying to think of how to put my answer into words that make sense. Um, I think in a certain way, I'm very skeptical or even nihilistic about how I feel about things, but I am a nihilistic who cares a nihilist who cares a lot.
Yeah. Do you find that, not to backtrack too far, but do you find that with social dynamics on the internet, do you find that it's hard to show yourself as a caring person, or do you find that apathy seems to be the default state, or not? Do you find that people care more than ever?
Well, I think the reality of the situation is just that people are like in their financial reality sort of pushed to the brink that you have to be working all the time. Like people, this whole side hustle culture isn't out of nothing. It's because people are really struggling to afford to house themselves and feed themselves currently, seemingly almost more than ever. So people are understandably very exhausted, and when you're exhausted and beaten down and in survival mode, like it makes sense that you can't find the energy to care about stuff outside of that. It's like you don't have the time or energy. Um, so empathize with that, and I don't fault people on it at all, or to feel like they're in a hopeless situation. But yeah, I guess I consider things like love and friendship and caring to be magic, and so I choose to try and find that energy uh, for my own sake, if not for anyone else's.
It's very good. Okay, well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. Amazing insight as far as your position as an artist who's been making internet music, which is now the default kind of music.
Yeah.
In a certain way, the internet music model is now the status quo. You've been doing it for as long as anyone's been doing it, and your position as an artist who's sensitive to things, to everything, provided some really incredible insight as far as what the trend over the past 20 or so years has been, and where we might be moving towards in the future. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it. It was lots of fun.